Hi everyone, my name is Ashley. I'm in Houston and this is my presentation on Deloitte for SNHU's IDS 400 course. I can't pull my PowerPoint up on here, but I have a second laptop with my presentation on it. So starting with the history of Deloitte. Deloitte & Touche Tatsamu was founded in 1845 by an accountant named William W. Deloitte. They are currently the largest private sector professional services network in the world, operating in over 150 different countries, and they have over 210,000 employees worldwide. They offer the following services. They do audit, they do tax, and tax can be sales and use tax, transaction tax, property tax. They're all over the tax realm. They do tax consulting, financial advisory, risk management, pretty much anything having to do with the accounting field. If you are familiar with accounting firms, they are the #1 of the big 4 accounting firms in the world. They are a huge powerhouse globally in the accounting world. Their 2014 revenue numbers were $32.4 billion. In addition to that, they estimate that they did about $91 million in pro bono work. They're also a Fortune 500 company. As of 2014, when it comes to their current diversity, women in the workplace make up about 45% of their population. They have a lot of history posted on their website. There's about a 5-minute long video, which I will post on the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation that I created. That goes through all of their history, including they also note when they hired their very first female, she was a female typist in 1902. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but the company was founded in 1845. So hiring a female in 1902, whenever women were not really prevalent in the workplace, it's pretty remarkable. Like I said before, they have over 210,000 employees worldwide, operating in over 150 different countries, so that's incredibly diverse. They do rely heavily upon outsourcing strategies, which is kind of what the focus of my presentation is on how to be almost better at outsourcing. They're also ranked #1 in global diversity according to Diversity Inc., which is an independent research group that studies large firms that have global footprints like Deloitte, and they rate them on certain scales when it comes to opportunities having to do with diversity. The cognitive lenses that I chose for this are career diversity, economic diversity, and cultural diversity. I chose career because being that they do participate in so much outsourcing, and when I say outsourcing, I primarily mean the jobs that are the data entry services and customer service. So when it comes to outsourcing, I think the public opinion is very negative. And I can understand that because most people, when they think of outsourcing, they think of sending jobs overseas to people who don't primarily speak English. And while, yes, that is the case, most of these companies do it because they not only do they seek to save money and increase their bottom line, they also look at it from a global assisting point of view. One of the examples that I can give is their India office. Deloitte has a very large India office. They have several India offices actually, and they employ about 40,000 people in India alone. They have offices in Mumbai, Hyderabad, Delhi, New Delhi, you name it, they probably have an office there. Their footprint in India is incredibly large compared to other countries that typically outsource to India. what most people don't realize is India is still stuck in a caste system, and a caste system I think we probably all learn about in grade school, in the latter part of high school, is you're born into it. There's no getting out unless somehow you acquire a large sum of money. You are either a have or you're a have not. You're rich or you're dirt poor. So by sending over, medium scale pay jobs, companies like Deloitte, who participate in outsourcing to India, are making the boundaries on the caste system kind of shady. Not shady like scary shady, shady like you can begin to tell that there's not a difference between the low class and the high class. They're effectively creating a middle class, if you will. They do not differentiate between men and women most of the time, although, the traditional standard of women in the workplace in India is still not very welcomed. It's also not frowned upon. More and more women are seeking to get higher education, which is great. And they are starting to move into more managerial roles in the workplace. So that's a little bit on just India and career diversity. You're starting to see more people go to school because they want those higher paying jobs, because that's a way that they can work themselves out of a lower caste if that's what they were born into. That being said, the career diversity at Deloitte is most of those jobs that are in India and China as well are kind of your run-of-the-mill data entry and customer service. So if they took some of their managerial positions out of the European regions and the US and started to move them over to India, I think they would see great success. Economic diversity, that one I just touched on because obviously when you outsource, you're paying a completely different sum of money for some of the same resources. I want to say that whenever I was looking into the economic diversity standpoint of this, as far as outsourcing goes, the head count was like one US person can 5 Indians can replace them. And in China, the number is even greater. It's 8 Chinese to 1 US. So by moving jobs over, you're getting obviously more work done, but at the same time, it's also at the detriment to the American economy. As far as cultural diversity goes, they do obviously have a really great grasp on cultural diversity. If they didn't, then you wouldn't see them winning awards and different accolades for women in the workplace. The different countries that they operate in, they win numerous awards every year for having educational programs and other kinds of incentives for certain types of people, to participate and to be hired and thrive in their working environments. This week we saw and I'm only adding this in here because Deloitte has taken such a supportive approach towards same-sex and same-sex marriages. They have been a supporter of that for a very long time. This week, of course, we saw that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of same-sex marriages throughout the United States. And, of course, as soon as that was announced, you see Deloitte on Twitter and on Facebook announcing, finally, love has won and everything. So they're not shy about what they do for diversity and for human rights, and I think that is really very respectful. So back to the presentation. Sorry. Some of the initiatives would be that I think that if they were to offer additional education through the use of grants or work study programs or internships, that they would see a rise in the confidence of people in their workplaces, and also obviously any kind of opportunity to improve the English of employees in different countries is there's nothing but benefits for that. Just investing in their people is going to, bring even more to their company. Non-educational courses, being that they are not offered at a university or something that has to be paid for. If they just did maybe some independent contracted cultural diversity classes in those countries where the caste system does exist, I think that would help decrease the borders in those kinds of areas. And then again, just touching upon sending higher level jobs to countries outside of the European region and the United States, letting them manage themselves, I think, would be a benefit. When you report to someone who is in another country, I think that people are kind of taken back by that. I've worked for a company before where my direct report was in London, and I never met him face to face. So you almost have this sense of no one's really watching me, or how am I supposed to prove myself if the person who is in charge of my raises, my compensation, my my job title, if they're never here, then what incentive is that for me to work? I think if they restructured how their offices work to where people in one office reported to people in their own office, then they would begin to see some things be improved upon. Apprehension. Now, obviously, I just spent a good deal talking about outsourcing. Outsourcing is a very big moneymaker for firms all over the world. You always hear about it in the news in a negative light, which I agree. I don't always think that outsourcing is the best choice for everything. I have worked at a firm where we do use outsourcing, and it definitely has its benefits, and it definitely has its downsides. I don't think anyone likes to call a place for customer service and speak to someone who you can't really hear and you can't really understand, which is why I mentioned before that one of the initiatives that I think that they really need to take is some better training. But in a market like today's, where the economy is no doubt struggling, bringing jobs back to the U.S. is not going to be ideal, which is why I think that any of what I said would be, they would have some apprehension against because of cost. When you have a large global firm like Deloitte, the bottom line is everything. Yes, their people mean a lot. They go through they have a lot of programs and things like that are set up to take care of their people. They're, culturally conscious, they're diversity conscious, but at the end of the day, they're not going to do anything that is going to put them in fear of not hitting their numbers because they have shareholders and executives and things like that they have to answer to. Also, especially when it comes to educational courses, I mean, everyone that is making this presentation, we're college students. We know how expensive and how time-consuming college can be. Just throwing out an educational program, either by a private university, if you can go here for X amount of a, reimbursement, educational reimbursement, is wonderful, but at the same time, all of that costs money. So there would have to be certain guidelines set around that. You have to work here for X many years. You have to stay here so long after you graduate in order for the company to feel like they are reaping the benefits of your education. I'm sure that they probably have tuition reimbursement, but because I'm not an employee of Deloitte, that's not something that they readily make available on their website. So, yeah. Anyhow, that is just kind of my presentation on Deloitte. Like I said, they are a huge powerhouse in the tax and accounting world. They're very conscious of cultural diversity and diversity. the fact that they openly publish how the percentage of women in their workplace, and that they've won numerous awards and accolades over the years for being, culturally diverse and all of that, I think strengthens their position in the marketplace and makes them a place where not only do people want to take their business to, but also they're a place where a lot of people want to work. I think any accounting student, that is finishing up their degree, they can only dream that they would get a letter of acceptance to one of the big four accounting firms, and Deloitte is number one on everyone's list. So I think a lot of that has to do with how they treat their people and the opportunities to pretty much go anywhere around the world where they have offices, like I said, in 150 different countries. A lot of what you'll find on their website has to do with how you can take your job anywhere. It's work-life flexibility. So there's not really a downside to that. But thank you for listening about my presentation about Deloitte, and good luck in all of your future endeavors.